What is up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, coming at you live every Wednesday at 8 p.m., going over the market stats, news you know about, everything about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida. And we're also doing a Q&A. So if you're watching it live, leave me your questions and comments below. If you're watching the replay, I will try and come back to answer it. But we're here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. for you guys. So if you have any questions in particular about certain area, certain neighborhood, pricing, anything like that, that's why we're here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. So as we always do, we start out with the market stats, and this one is going to be a recap from the previous week because we had some shocking numbers last week when it came down to pending sales. But I wanted to reassure you guys that it's probably going to get a little bit better as more of those sales get reported, right? And it did get a little bit better, but it's still a shocking number. So we're going to hop into the stats first. Then we're going to go into the news that you need to know about. We normally start out with a national news story, then go to state, then go to a local news story, and then we do Q&A as well. So if you have any questions, whether you're watching, the replay or live, any part of this, go ahead and throw them in the comments below. We're going to head over to the market stats right now, have those pulled up. Somewhere. All right, so last week when we looked at pending sales, it was a shocking number to see. And as you can see, like the seasonality of the market is it goes up and down. We normally have our peak of sales during the summer, and then as it goes towards the winter, it slows down significantly. That happens every single year. It's no secret there. But the past couple years since 2022, the market has been slower, right? And we've seen pending sales go down further and further and further to where we are today. In September compared to last year, you can see that our numbers are down 19.8%. Once again, we're in the first week. I imagine we will see this number soften just a little bit. Last week, it was like 26.8% or something like that. Very close. It was a very high number. And 19.8% is a high number, but this is definitely something that we're concerned in looking at. Our market has slowed, and during this time of year, as you can see, every single year we do have bottoms of our market where it starts to trend downwards. That's what we're in right now, and we see most of our sales activity during the summer months. So this isn't crazy, but seeing the transaction volume drop 20%, that is concerning, right? We want to make sure we take a look at that. We want to make sure we stay on top of that. So when we take a look at St. Johns County, which is where St. Augustine is, we're down even further, 24.4%. So what I want to do, because pending sales mattered, 100% pending sales matter, but I also want to take a look at closed sales, because closed sales is also another important. So how many of those pending sales are getting to the table? It's interesting, closed sales is actually outpacing pending sales, so maybe this is some stuff from the summer. But only down 0.7% compared to this time last year. So nothing crazy, right? That's a nicer number, right? Hey, if you're down 20%, that's a problem. We're down 0.1%, not 0.7%. That's not so big of an issue. So let's take that same logic. We'll just apply it all to Northeastern Florida. And that's actually, I didn't look at this before. This is actually surprising. We're up 4.5%, right? And now let's just go into median sale price as well. We got median sale price. Now, this is all of Northeastern Florida. I'll show you all the counties: Flagler, Nassau, Putnam, St. Johns, Duval, Clay, Bradford, and Baker. We're actually up year over year at 360, up 1.4%. But as you can see, prices really since 2022, when we hit our peak at 375 for our entire area, have really kind of flatlined. They haven't done much. They haven't gone up. They haven't gone down a tremendous amount. So if you bought prior to 2022, more than likely you have some equity in your house. If you bought in 2020, you're doing just fine, right? So let's see, December of 2020, you're at 272,000 median sale price. Probably got a sweet interest rate as well. So you're doing just fine. But the people who bought, let's see, we'll do December of 2022, $349,000. So you roughly have, what was that? Roughly $75,000 of equity within, a 2-year span. And over the 5-year span, that's still great, right? That's still fantastic to have. So guys, we'll always keep up to date on the market stats here. As of slower, it's across the entire country, essentially, outside of a couple of pockets in the Northeast and pockets of California. Pretty much slow everywhere else. Texas and Florida are leading that, right? Because we probably had the biggest influx of people coming into our area during the pandemic, just based on political things. But do I think it's going to continue to be slow? I think that what's happened, and this is subjective, right? It's personal opinion. Obviously, I'm a real estate professional. My job is to buy and sell homes, but I try to put out good information for you guys so you can make good decisions. every real estate cycle is cyclical, right? There are boom markets and there's bust markets, right? And it seems that since 2022, real estate has been in a recession, especially here locally. And when you hear recession, you think prices going down. Not necessarily. What we've seen, and as I just showed you, is that transactions have gone down. Prices haven't really gone anywhere. And that's going to lead us into into the news story that we want to talk about, which is very relevant to what we're talking about here. So, I don't know if you guys tried this. I feel like I love curds, but curder burger, I'm a curd nerd on top of the burger. I don't know. It seems like a lot of cheese. Here's why housing slowdown isn't lowering home prices. And this goes through a whole story about someone looking to sell their house and they weren't getting very many hits. And if they weren't going to get their price, they were going to take it off the market, right? And that's the biggest thing here. The home prices, sales are stalling while home prices keep climbing. In September, 80% of markets saw increases, the highest share in 9 months, led by the Northeast and the Midwest, according to released data by a financial services company. So borrowing costs, 2022, mortgage rates went up pretty significantly, play a big role in that. But the other thing is that sellers, the headline here, sellers and buyers, and we just saw that in pending sales, would rather leave the market than lower their prices, which helps keep overall prices elevated. So, and that sounds crazy, right? To anyone who's like trying to sell their home and historically have been selling their home in the past, right? That seems like a crazy thing. Like, why would someone just keep their home? Well, the thing is that a lot of these people that own these homes either own them in cash, they own them outright, so it's not costing them that much for them to maintain and keep the property. And there's other people who have 2, 3, 4% mortgages who are like, all right, I'll just put a tenant in there and they'll pay my mortgage and I'll probably make a couple $100 a month, opposed to selling it, in their eyes as what they want. They want this for the property because they're used to the pandemic numbers, but then they're getting this right now. So they're like, you know what, I'll just rent it. I got to get a good interest rate. I own it straight out. And that's the reality of this market. And that's why we've continued to see prices. I mean, in our area, it's flatlined, like I've shown you before. But in general, across most of the real estate market here in the United States, it has continued to go up. Will we continue to see that pressure? Hard to say, right? There's a million things that could happen. But I do think that in terms of my thought before, real estate is cyclical. You have good times, you have bad times. And the bad times in terms of transactions, in terms of the market crashing happened in transaction count. There wasn't as many people transacting, has happened, and we're in the thick of it. If interest rates continue to go down, that's going to slowly pull us out. And I imagine it will be a gradual thing. It's not like I'm saying interest rates are going to go from 6 to 4.5 in a month. It's probably not going to happen, right? Unless we have a COVID number 2. But over the next 2 years, I imagine we're going to see an upswing in transactions. So either way, you guys have any questions about any market stats that I covered here or any specific neighborhoods, throw them in the comments below. We're going to go on to the next news story here, and this is a follow-up from some of these previous live streams. So if you watch the live streams regularly, I always try to tie in to what we did before, what we checked out before, so you guys can stay up to date on all the relevant news stories. Okay. Marineland Dolphin adventure could soon be in the hands of a Northeast Florida developer. Dolphins not included. And if you're familiar with Oakleaf Plantation, if you're familiar with Silverleaf, which I talk about regularly, it's here in St. Johns County, 17,000 residential home development in the northwestern part of St. Johns County. The Hudson Company is developing that. They offer a stalking horse bid of $3.5 million for property up for sale in bankruptcy case. This is supposed to go up for auction. I meant to Google this. I have no idea what a stalking horse bid is. So let's see what that means real quick. Stalking horse bidder is the first party to submit an initial bid in a bankruptcy auction for a distressed company's assets, setting a price floor in terms that other potential buyers must then compete against. Okay. Well, that's what that means. Okay, great. That makes good sense. But either way, these guys have the money. Apparently, there's 2 brothers that run the Hudson companies, and they live in Silverleaf, so they're here in St. Johns County. Travis Hudson, I think, is a Florida State Senator. Let me see. Yeah, Florida State Senator. So let's just say that he's got some pull, I imagine, he knows some people. He's got some money, obviously. He's a big developer here in the area. But what does that mean for Marineland? And you can see in the comments, I'll share this here. The comments here. Single family homes, $1 million prices, beachside maybe about 6. My guess would be 20 to 30 high rise $1 million condos. Expect to be torn down in favor of multi-million dollar houses that the taxpayer will have to rebuild when they get damaged by the next hurricane because they can only get insurance from Citizens Insurance backed by we, the taxpayers. Continued poor leadership by the St. Johns County Commissioner body. The St. Johns County Commissioners have nothing to do with this, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. It was like the sale of the Dolphin Company was a bad move in the long term. So, and that's a growing issue, right? And in any area that has coast, that has property like Marine. Now, this is me being honest, right? I went to Marineland when I was a kid. It was cool then, 20 freaking years ago. I don't think they've kept up. And I've actually seen an Instagram video, TikTok video, can't remember, where someone did a drone video, private person did a drone video over Marineland and showed the conditions that these dolphins were living in, and they didn't look great, right? Maybe they edited it, I don't know. They didn't look great. So the business is not doing well, right? They're obviously in bankruptcy. So what's a better use for that property? And I think it could, me personally, I think it could be a really nice place to have like a beachfront type of resort, right? Because it's just far enough south where it's nice and calm, right? There's not a whole bunch of tourists, where like maybe you can go like a beach club almost, right? Where you can pay a membership to go for the day and, you can get drinks and stuff by the beach and all that good stuff. I think that would be really cool. If money's going to go in there, it's like, okay, we either sell it to a developer who's going to put houses on it and then only the people that own the houses can use it, or we put it into like a private company or a private company buys it and then they're able to do something like a resort there, right? So what's the chance that the county buys it and just like, hey, it's preserved now? Probably pretty low because they have a deteriorating building on that property. So what do you guys think? What do you think is the best use for that Marineland space? Maybe UF buys it too. They have Whitney Laboratories right across the street. That would probably be a good like addition to UF, but they now have to place the bid in with the stalking horse bid, right? And I think that was $3.5 million. Was that it? $3.5 million. $3.5 million. So, do we see a college doing that? The University of Florida has the pockets for it, for sure. But do they believe in their marine program that much? I don't know. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm going to go on to the next news story here. Excuse me. St. Johns County greenlights residential project over office and retail development near I-95. So, let's see if I can make this bigger. This is Parkland Preserve. This is off of International Golf Parkway. So World Golf Resort and Hall of Fame, IMAX, is over here. They're talking about redeveloping that as well into something, which we covered a couple weeks ago. But they have this little winding road that goes back over here. This is all going to be residential. So you'll be able to see, you can see this pond as of right now, I believe. Or maybe it's just a big field. Hard for me to remember. But you can see this, and you will be able to see this from 95, which historically in St. Johns County, we typically, if you drive through Duval County and you see houses, residential homes or multifamily properties right off the highway. Like you see them, and it's because it's a city and it's developed. And once you enter St. Johns County, it's pretty much just woods all lining that. That's because people don't want to live next to a highway. So the development here is happening now. So it's really surprising to see that. I imagine there will be a little buffer, but I don't think it'll be enough to hide the road noise, because I've sold some homes in Parkland Preserve, which is a beautiful 55 plus. But at the end of the day, you can still hear 95 from Parkland Preserve. You can hear 95 from the Cascades and World Golf Village, which is another 55 plus community. So that's probably, I think it's going to be a townhome development. So maybe they're a little bit more well insulated than typical, but that's going in right there, right next to Parkland Preserve off International Golf Parkway. So more development happening. I'm going to grab a drink of water here quick, guys. Talking for like 15 minutes straight. All right, on to the next news story. Any questions about what we cover, guys, let me know in the comments below. Commenting also helps me in the algorithm, gets the message out to more people, which is always the goal. Okay, so I'm a big fan of Habitat in this area. I've done a whole bunch of volunteering with Habitat for Humanity. I feel like they do a really good job here. I've volunteered here locally, but also in other places I've lived too. St. Johns County supports Volusia Woods project to expand affordable housing. St. Johns County has reaffirmed its commitment to affordable housing with supporting the Volusia Woods development, which will introduce 36 new homes in the community. The county has invested $1.2 million in infrastructure for Volusia Woods, with funding sources including almost $950,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act and $264,000 from the Affordable Housing Grant Program. So, Volusia Woods is a Habitat for Humanity community, which Habitat for Humanity just got approval to build, I think, a community of 70 homes just south of the Solomon Calhoun Center a couple weeks ago, which essentially they sell the property to someone, they take a hit on the mortgage, and then they have to live in it for a certain amount of years before it's not a certain amount of years, but there is some type of like caveat to that. But essentially on the mortgage, Habitat for Humanity takes a big hit on that because they base it off of income. And they say that they range income from like 30% of average median area income to 120%. So your payment should be somewhere between, like, I think at the cheapest $1,500 and the most expensive like $2,500, right? Which is in reality affordable anymore, which is wild to say, but it is, right? And for our area here, I showed you before, median sale price is $550,000 here in St. Johns County for a single family home. These homes are starting, I think, for sale if you were to just buy one without Habitat, around $250,000, right? New construction home, 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom houses. And in reality, like, I'm in a lot of houses, guys. There's a lot of things that are nicer about the Habitat for Humanity homes than there are for one of the big builders that we have here. Just give you a quick example. Habitat for Humanity homes have hardy board siding all the way around. And we're talking about the hardy board that looks like wood slats, has that siding all the way around the house. Also has a metal roof. If you go to like D.R. Horton or Lennar, they have shingle roofs, and then they have the hardy board siding that looks like wood on the front of the house, but the rest of the house is 4x8 sheets of hardy board, right? So it's still hardy board siding, but it's not the wood look hardy board. So it's a less than product. If you're, in terms of price, it's going to cost them less. But that's just, two differences that you could see in like a Habitat built home versus a national home builder, right? And I think that's, a lot of people look at Habitat and they see a bad name on it, but I promise you, drive around here to these Habitat homes here, take a look at them. They're pretty nice. They're actually really, I've worked on them, I've done some work in them. They're nice homes, the community. And then the other part of that is people say, oh, that'll be a slum in X amount of years. They've had Habitat here for a while, but this community here, there's one off Broach Street too. Might be like 20 homes or so. It's so cute. It's really cute. People take care of it. It just looks good, and it's a bad stigma. But either way, I think it's a good thing here for St. Johns County. I'm a big fan of it. Any questions about that? I know there's probably not many questions here, man. Not many people looking for that, but we'll head on the next news story. We got Pete. Pete, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. I try to be a source here, guys. That's really it. And maybe I throw in a little bit of what I think, right? Anecdotally. But I just try to give the information as straight as possible. So, next news story here, guys. We got 8 people here. Appreciate you being here. Any comments or questions about what we cover, throw them in the comments below. All right, so this is an interesting one. St. Johns County lowers property tax rates. Here's why many could still pay more. So, St. Johns County Commission unanimously approved a $1.8 billion budget for fiscal year 2026 that includes a lower property tax rate, but could still mean a slightly higher bill for property owners. So they lowered the general fund, right? But understanding taxes, I mean, it's kind of a pain to do it. I feel like I've been talking about this on this channel for years, and it's still a little fuzzy for me. But the total of the 4 rates fell from 6.89 mils in 2025 to 6.83 in 2026. And mils, let's see, they have okay. A mil equates to $100 for every 100,000 of assessed property value. Now, what I will say is, like, this is what I'm doing. We're gonna always go to the St. Johns County property appraiser. and we're going to put in that information through here, and you can estimate your taxes. So like the best thing you can do, sorry, you want to search property records, and I'm just going to use my address just really quick. You know what? No, here I use a house for sale. Saw this house earlier this week or last week, it's just on the top of my head. But go to my tax bill, it'll pull in, I'm sorry, I'm messing this all up. You go to my tax estimator, it'll pull in the specific millage rate for that specific area. You add your price, so this one's on the market for $925,000. It's intercoastal front, so pretty sweet house. If you're going to make it your primary home, you can add the homestead exemption, and then it can compute, and it's going to give you your taxes. $11,402.99 is going to be that annual property tax bill. Now, I've actually seen rates come in lower, typically 80% of that, right? So if we take 11,402 times 0.8, that's more than likely going to be what your actual tax bill will be. Now, back to the news story here. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. But they're saying, hey, this could raise, your property tax bill may not go down, right? So if this is the biggest part here. Okay, a home assessed at $200,000 subject to all four millage rate would have been charged $1,378 by the county in 2025. If that home saw no increase, and that's the biggest, in value from 2025 to 2026, its 2026 tax bill would be $1,366. But if that same home's assessed value increased at the 3% maximum allowed by Save Our Homes Amendment for homesteaded properties, that 2026 bill would be $1,406, an overall increase of $28. So, homesteading your property caps you at a tax will reassess every single year. When you make your primary home and you homestead it, that caps you at 3% year over year. So that's what they're talking about here. So essentially what they're saying is like, hey, your taxes for the general taxes are going to go down from St. Johns County. Now, of course, you have like special tax districts. If you live in downtown St. Augustine, there's special taxes for living there. You live in St. Augustine Beach, different taxes there. But this is just for St. Johns County taxes. So those in general are going down. But if your property value continues to climb, then you will see an increase year over year. So not exactly ideal. Who knows? Maybe DeSantis will get rid of property taxes, and I'm talking about nothing in a couple years, But that's what it is, guys. I think that's the last news story I have here. Yep, that's the last one I got for you this week. Wasn't a crazy week here. Busy week for me though. Oh my gosh. It seems like this year is normally like September, October is when like, okay, this is the time you take to get your business, like get your systems right, get everything, well-oiled machine, plan your year for next year and what your goals are for next year. That's like this time of year. And I feel like between me and my wife, we've just been busy. Put a new listing up, 2 contracts last week. We had 3 closings last week. My wife just got a new contract today. Different showings, so it's been busy for us. In general, the market has seemed like it's slower, which is typical this time of year. So I'm thankful for it, but I might need to fly to Puerto Rico for a long weekend here shortly, guys. I need a little break. But either way, guys, I'm done for the night. Any questions about what we got here, throw them in the comments below. I'll come back and answer them. Here every Wednesday, 8 p.m., going to the market stats, news you know about, everything about buying, selling, or investing here in Northeastern Florida, and we're doing a Q&A. So, guys, I appreciate you being here every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pete, I really appreciate you guys for chiming in here. It helps the flow of the show as well, especially when you guys got questions. Really appreciate you guys being here. See you next week. Have a good one.